The rain that day wasn't just water, it was a warning. Our father's casket sat under a black canopy, drowning in white lilies and fake condolences. Faces I hadn't seen in years showed up, not for love, but for legacy. And standing center stage, dressed in a custom black suit with sunglasses too expensive for grief, was my brother Daniel. Daniel had always been our father's favorite, or at least he made sure the world believed that. He was charming, cunning, and dangerously charismatic, the kind of man who could sell a broken dream and make you thank him for the pieces. But beneath the polished smile was something rotten, something our father refused to see. I stood quietly by the edge, holding my mother's hand. Her knuckles were pale from gripping tighter each time someone muttered, "He's in a better place." She knew better. Our father, Richard Morrow, built an empire from scratch, a shipping company turned multinational beast. And every day of his life, he reminded us, legacy is earned, not inherited. But just 1 week after he died, Daniel invited the entire family to a private reading of the will. No lawyers, no notary, just him, a glass of scotch, and a grin. "This is what Dad wanted," Daniel said, waving around an envelope that looked freshly printed. He didn't trust lawyers anymore. I almost laughed. Our father had 3 lawyers, on retainer for this exact reason, to avoid things like this. But Daniel handed me the will, and watched, daring me to doubt it. It said everything went to him. The house, the cars, the company, the overseas accounts. Even the art collection my father and I had curated together. Nothing for me. Not a single dollar, not even the pocket watch our grandfather had passed down. I looked up. "You expect me to believe this?" Daniel leaned in, whispering like a snake, "Believe it or not, baby sister, it's done." But he didn't know I had seen the original will. A month before Dad died, he called me into his study. He looked weak, tired, and ready. "If anything happens to me, go to Marcus. He has the real document, not Daniel." Marcus was our father's closest friend and legal advisor. And a week later, he vanished. Literally vanished. His office was cleared out, his number disconnected. No trace. Something wasn't adding up, and I wasn't going to let it go. I didn't say a word that day. I signed the fake condolences guest book and hugged Daniel like I believed him. But inside me, a fire was building. He wanted everything. Well, now he had my attention. Because if Daniel thought he could erase me from my own bloodline, he had. Another thing coming. The house we grew up in was quiet, now eerily so. It still smelled of pipe tobacco and lemon polish. The floorboards still creaked in the same places. But the soul of the house, our father, was gone. Daniel had moved in. The second the will was read, prancing around like a king crowned by deceit. He offered me a guest room, as if I were some orphan cousin, not the daughter of the man who built this place. I accepted, not because I wanted his charity, but because I had unfinished business within these walls. And it started in the attic. Dad always kept strange things up there. Journals, ledgers, dusty trunks, and secret files he didn't trust to leave in the office. He called it his memory bank. I remembered once, when I was 13, I caught him sealing a small metal box and writing "private, only if something happens" on the label. He'd chuckled when he saw me snooping, and said, "Someday you'll understand why I keep my truth above the world." That night, after Daniel passed out from celebrating his fake inheritance with his equally slimy friends, I slipped out of my room and climbed the attic stairs. The lock was new. Of course it was. I picked it anyway. Daniel never learned that. Dad taught me how to crack a lock in under 30 seconds. Every legacy holder needs to know how to protect and retrieve what's theirs. Dad used to say inside. Nothing looked disturbed, but that was Daniel's trick. He was too clean to neat. He didn't ransack, he replaced. I moved to the far corner, where the temperature always dropped near the rafters. And there it was, the metal box, still sealed, still marked. I opened it carefully. Inside were old documents, letters, and one yellowing envelope marked, "To be given to Evelyn Morrow in the event of my death." My heart stopped. Inside was a letter written in Dad's unmistakable handwriting. "If you're reading this, then Daniel has done what I feared. My trust in him was not enough to protect this family. Evelyn, you must find Marcus. He has the original will, the real one, and copies. Everything is split 50-50. You get the company, Daniel gets the estate. I wanted you both to lead together. But if Daniel has already taken everything, it means he destroyed the balance and the proof." At the bottom was a note, scribbled in haste. "P.S. He forged my signature. Once before, look at the E's. He loops them like a snake." My blood boiled. I grabbed the forged will Daniel had so proudly waved in my face days earlier and studied the signature. Dad was right. The E in Richard E. Morrow was wrong. Looping, exaggerated, not the firm, sharp hook Dad always used. He forged it. Didn't just lie, he committed fraud. Against me, against our father's dying wishes. The next morning, I played it cool. Smiled at Daniel across the breakfast table while he chewed his eggs. Like a man with no conscience. "You always loved Dad's company," he said, smugly. "But it's not for you, Evie. You were always the emotional one. You'd ruin it. I nodded, stirring my coffee. I know. You were born to lead, right? He grinned. Exactly. But inside, I was already drafting my war plan. The next step, find Marcus. If Daniel had gone to such lengths to silence him, then Marcus had something explosive. And I knew just where to start. His cabin in Vermont, the one no one knew about, except Dad. And me. Vermont was quiet this time of year. The kind of quiet that made secrets echo louder. Marcus's cabin sat at the edge of a frozen lake, tucked between pine trees like a forgotten memory. It took me 8 hours, a fake excuse to Daniel, and a dangerously icy road to get there. But as soon as I saw the smoke coming from the chimney, I knew I had the right place. I knocked. Silence. Then the door cracked open, and there he was. Marcus Evans, our father's most trusted friend, looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. His beard was thicker, his eyes hollow. But when he saw me, something shifted in his gaze. Guilt, relief, maybe both. I was wondering when you'd come, he said. I stepped inside. The cabin was warm but scattered with documents, photographs, and a single laptop glowing with a email. You disappeared, I said. I had to. Your brother. He came after me the night your father died. My breath caught. He knew your father changed the will. He threatened me, offered money first, then made it clear that if I didn't hand over the original, I'd regret it. Did you? I asked. Marcus smiled sadly. Not a chance. Your father was a flawed man, but his last act was to do right by both of you. I couldn't betray that. He walked over to a safe hidden behind a bookshelf and opened it. Inside was a single manila envelope. This is the real will, he said, handing it to me. I opened it, heart racing. There it was, our father's true final testament. The signature perfect, the allocations clear. The company to me, the estate and cars to Daniel. The money split. Equal, balanced, just like Dad wanted. I held it like a weapon, because that's what it was now. Marcus wasn't done. I have more, he said. I recorded my last conversation with your father, the day before he died. He was worried about Daniel, paranoid even. He suspected Daniel was planning something. Your dad made me swear to protect the truth, if anything happened. He pulled out a USB drive. If you want to take Daniel down, you'll need this too. I took it. The drive. The will. The words of a dying man. I had everything now. Everything, except a plan. Daniel had already transferred half the company. Assets. He was whining and dining the board, making power moves, stripping the company like a thief in a burning museum. I couldn't just show up with papers and hope justice prevailed. I needed to expose him, publicly, brutally. So I called someone who hated Daniel almost as much as I did. Sasha. She was Daniel's ex-fiancée. He left her 2 weeks before the wedding. After cheating with her best friend, she was a journalist now, working with a rising digital news outlet known for blowing up scandals like fireworks. When I told her what I had, she was in. Let's ruin him, she said without hesitation. We'll make him wish he never learned how to spell inheritance. We spent 3 days putting everything together. The real will, the forged one, the USB audio file, even a list of shell companies Daniel used to siphon company funds. It was all there, tied with a bow of vengeance. The story dropped on a Monday. Headline: Son forged father's will in multi-million-dollar scheme. Sister fights back with explosive evidence. By noon, it had over 2 million views. By 2 p.m., the board had called an emergency meeting. By 5, Daniel was trending for all the wrong reasons. And by 8 p.m., he was on my doorstep, red-faced, unhinged. You think you won? He spat, slamming his hand on the doorframe. I didn't flinch. You forgot something, I said, handing him a court summons. He stared at it like it was poison. What is this? The beginning, I said, of karma. Daniel once told me, when we were kids, that courtrooms were just theaters with better lighting. I never forgot that, and standing here now, I realized he wasn't wrong. The difference was, this time, he wasn't the director. He was the defendant. The courthouse was overflowing. Every seat taken, people stood in the back, leaning against walls, trying to catch even a breath of scandal. Outside, the media lined the steps like vultures. The headline they printed that morning read, Sibling Showdown. Corporate heir accused of forging father's fortune, and it was only day one. Daniel arrived with a fake calmness, dressed like a man still clinging to power, sharp navy suit, Rolex on display, his signature smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth, but his eyes betrayed him. They darted, twitched. He scanned the room like a general walking into enemy territory, which he was eyes at just rows away. Wearing the black suit Dad had left me in a garment bag with a note, for when you lead, not if. When the judge entered. Silence fell. The trial began. Our lawyer opened with precision. Your Honor, we are not here today to debate grief or legacy. We are here to expose a calculated fraud, one that rewrote a man's final wishes, stole from his own blood, and nearly destroyed a company built over 3 generations, and then, piece by piece, we lit Daniel's house of lies on fire. Exhibit A, the real will, authenticated by Marcus. The signature was cross-checked by a forensic document examiner, who compared it to hundreds of Dad's signed contracts, letters, even birthday cards. The forged one, the version Daniel had presented, was riddled with inconsistencies. The ease, the spacing, even the pressure of the pen. All wrong. Daniel's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Exhibit B. The voice. We played Dad's final recording, his warning about Daniel, about the balance he intended to preserve, and about the true heir to his company, me. Even the stenographer stopped typing for a second. When she heard Dad say, "Don't let Daniel consume what I built. Evelyn is the one who understands legacy." I watched Daniel as the words hit him. He shifted in his seat. The smirk was gone, but it was only the beginning. Then came Marcus. He stepped into the courtroom like a ghost, resurrected. People whispered. As he walked by, he took the stand and spoke slowly, clearly, with the kind of grief that doesn't beg for sympathy, only justice. He testified about how Daniel showed up at his house 2 days after Dad died, demanding the will, how he threatened to expose a fabricated scandal if Marcus didn't hand it over, how he offered a bribe and then sent 2 men in the night to intimidate him. I fled, Marcus said, because I knew the kind of man Daniel had become. Daniel's lawyer tried to paint Marcus as unstable, paranoid, even mentally unwell. But then we played the voicemail Daniel accidentally left on Marcus's phone, a drunken rant full of threats, slurs, and a line that would headline every news site for the next week. No one cares about the truth. Marcus, I am the legacy now. Get in line, or get erased. But the dagger? The one that punctured Daniel's image beyond repair. That came from Monica, Daniel's personal assistant, his confidant, his fixer. When she walked in wearing a navy blazer and trembling hands, everyone sat forward. She'd stayed quiet for months. People assumed she was loyal. Instead, she was waiting. I was afraid, she said, voice cracking, but not anymore. She pulled out a file, dozens of printed emails, voice memos, messages from Daniel instructing her to destroy hard drives, falsify meeting records, and most damning of all, help him forge the will. I typed the original draft of the fake document, she confessed. He made me practice copying your father's signature for weeks. He even brought in a professional to guide us. The courtroom exploded. Murmurs, gasps, flashes from reporters. The judge slammed his gavel 3 times to regain order, but Monica wasn't done. She then played a voice memo. Daniel's voice, crystal clear, laughing as he said, Dad was slipping. He wouldn't even remember what he wanted. I gave the family structure. Evelyn, she'd burned the company down trying to protect feelings. My jaw clenched and then, finally, Monica said the words that sealed it. He said to me, blood is a tool, not a bond. The defense tried to recover. They claimed Daniel was misunderstood, pressured, even mourning. They said he was protecting the company, not stealing it, but nobody believed it. The board of directors showed up. They submitted written statements, confirming Daniel had diverted millions from company accounts into offshore holdings. The IRS launched an immediate inquiry. The state opened a separate fraud investigation. Daniel sat there, shrinking with every revelation, like a suit slowly folding in on itself, and then the court recessed. But it wasn't over, because when I got home that night, my door was ajar. Inside, the apartment was trashed, pictures of Dad torn off the walls, my laptop stolen, papers scattered. It wasn't random, it was a warning, scrawled on my mirror in red ink. This isn't over. And beneath it, taped with a knife, was a photo of me and Marcus, taken from a distance. Someone was watching. They say, truth wins in the end. But what they don't tell you is that, sometimes, the truth drags hell with it. After Daniel's lies were exposed in court, I thought I'd feel peace, maybe even vindication. But instead, it felt like I'd cut the head off a snake, only to find it had 2 more. The media roasted him. The board erased him. Investors ran like rats from a sinking ship. Yet Daniel didn't run. He didn't vanish. He plotted. The embers beneath the ashes. He kept quiet through the trial, too quiet. The forged will, the shell companies, Monica's testimony, Dad's voice from beyond the grave. It was enough to crush any other man. But Daniel wasn't like other men. He was dangerous in silence. I started receiving anonymous threats, cryptic letters with words clipped from magazines, USB drives with corrupted files. My tires were slashed. Sasha's car was followed for 2 nights. Marcus's cabin was broken into, nothing stolen, just ransacked, none of it traceable. But the message was clear. Daniel may have lost the spotlight, but he hadn't left the stage. The night everything shifted, it was nearly midnight when I got the call from Monica. She was crying. He contacted me, she whispered. I didn't answer, but he sent something, a flash drive, hidden in a book. Inside was a recording, his voice whispering like a ghost. You took everything from me, Monica, and now I'll take it all back, one piece at a time. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Daniel's face was all over the news again, but not for what we expected. A data breach, a leak from One of the old Morrow servers, one Daniel had accessed before he was locked out. Emails, confidential company memos, internal disputes, anything that could cast doubt on my leadership was now in the public domain. And worst of all, some of it was real, not fraudulent, just vulnerable. Human discussions I'd had with board members during the fallout. Concerns, mistakes I admitted, things I said in private, now weaponized in public. Stock prices dipped. The board demanded answers. Daniel had thrown a match into a room full of gas. He didn't need to win. He just wanted to burn it all down. Enter the Judas Thats. When Nina came forward, a junior board member, fresh-faced, ambitious, always eager to prove herself. She had stood by me during the investigation, or so I thought. Turns out, she had been feeding Daniel updates. Feeding him company intel from inside. Not out of loyalty. Not out of revenge, but because Daniel had promised her something. Control. He was planning a comeback. Not just from prison, but through proxies, through loopholes, through Nina. They called it Operation Lazarus. And the worst part, he had allies. Disgraced former executives. Loyal old clients. Even a few Morrow stockholders angry over how the family feud had impacted their wallets. He was building a backdoor empire, one forged in shadows, whispered in code. Daniel hadn't been defeated. He had evolved. The offer that changed everything. Then came the final blow of Part 5. A courier arrived at my office with a sealed letter. No name, no return address. Inside, a typed note. One final offer. You step down, quietly. I get what's left of the company, and you keep the legacy intact. No more leaks, no more attacks. I walk away after 6 months. You save your name, take the deal, or everything falls. And taped to the back, a photograph. Of me, at my father's gravesite, taken the day before. He was watching me again. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I called Sasha, Marcus, and Monica. We met that night at my father's old study. I laid everything out on the table. The photo, the letter, the breach, Nina's betrayal. We made a decision. No more reacting. No more defense. It was time to strike back. Not in secret, not in court, not with quiet dignity, but with fire. Final scene of Part 5. The next morning, I walked into Morrow International's lobby in front of a sea of cameras. I stood at the podium and looked straight into the flashing lights. My name is Evelyn Morrow. I am the rightful CEO of this company, the daughter of the man who built it, and the woman who refused to let her legacy be rewritten by a fraud. Daniel Morrow may have escaped the courtroom, but he will not escape the truth. Operation Lazarus ends today. I have the evidence. I have the names. And I will burn this whole web down if I have to, because I will not be erased. I looked into the lens and spoke directly to him. You want war, Daniel? Now you've got one. Asterisk, there's a point in every war when the fire becomes the only light left. Daniel pushed too far. The blackmail, the smear campaigns, the breach, and now, stalking me at my father's grave. He wanted a war. He wanted to ruin the Morrow name. If he couldn't own it, but he forgot something vital. I was a Morrow, too, and I wasn't just fighting for legacy anymore, I was fighting for peace, for justice, for everything he tried to steal. The operation, the first move was Nina. The traitor inside the board had to be dealt with fast and publicly. I confronted her not with rage, but with proof. Sasha released a full expose, a timeline, bank records, emails. Every contact between Nina and Daniel was published across major business outlets under the headline, Corporate Coup Attempt, Morrow Insider, Exposed in Shadow Campaign. Within 24 hours, Nina was removed by unanimous vote. But she wasn't the end, she was the crack in Daniel's wall. Because once the story dropped, others came forward. Disgruntled employees, interns Daniel had threatened, executives he'd promised payouts to in secret. Like rats fleeing a ship on fire, they ran straight into our hands with stories, files, and names. We built a case. Not just legal nuclear, it wasn't about courtrooms. Now, it was about the public eye. The kind of justice that ruins reputations for good, and the center of it all. Operation Lazarus. Daniel's attempt to build a corporate empire from exile. We traced shell companies back to aliases, then to burner phones. We mapped VPN trails. We used Monica's access to his cloud backups. The guy who once thought he was invincible had grown sloppy, and on one of those backups, we found a folder labeled in case she wins. Inside was everything: blackmail material, backup plans, accounts, recorded conversations, including one call between Daniel and a known cybercrime broker in Serbia. It confirmed what we suspected. He ordered the server breach at Morrow. Game over. The broadcast. I didn't wait for the next trial. I wanted the world to know before the courts ever spoke. So, we did it our way. We hosted a live press conference at Morrow Tower. I stood on the very rooftop where Daniel once threatened me. I didn't speak like a victim. I spoke like an executioner. There is a difference between legacy and theft, I said into the microphone, between ambition and destruction. My brother chose the latter. But today, I choose to close the chapter, not in silence, but in truth. I unveiled everything. Audio, documents, connections to criminal partners, the hacked leaks. I named him for what he was. Daniel Morrow, architect of fraud, agent of sabotage, an enemy of his own bloodline. And at the end, I dropped the final bomb. This morning, Daniel Morrow was arrested at a private airstrip attempting to flee the country under a fake name. The FBI now has full evidence of his Operation Lazarus conspiracy, and I will testify against him myself. The last visit, 3 days later, I got a call. Daniel wanted to see me. From Federal Holding, one last conversation before the trial. I didn't owe him anything, but I went. He looked tired, thinner, the arrogance was gone, but something more dangerous had taken its place, a quiet, hollow ache. You won, he said. I survived. I replied. He looked up at me with eyes I didn't recognize. Do you think Dad would be proud of this? Of either of us? I sat back, arms crossed. Dad would be devastated, but he'd be proud that I chose truth over blood. A long pause, then he leaned in. You'll never escape this, Evie, no matter how many speeches you give, no matter how many headlines clear your name, you'll always be the woman who destroyed her brother. I stared back, calm. No, I'll be the woman who refused to be erased by him. And I left. 1 year later, Daniel was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Multiple counts, conspiracy, fraud, cybercrimes, attempted corporate espionage. He'll be eligible for parole in 17. Morrow International is thriving. We rebuilt everything, cleaner, stronger, with more transparency than ever before. I didn't keep his name out of the story. I didn't cover it up for the family brand. The truth is part of the legacy now. Because legacies aren't about gold, plaques, or glass towers. They're about what you protect when everyone's trying to take it from you. Final scene: I visited my father's grave on the anniversary of Daniel's arrest. The sun was rising. I knelt by the stone and placed a single lily. I kept my promise, I whispered. You said not to let him consume what you built. I didn't, but he nearly consumed me. I stood up, took a breath, and walked back toward the car. No looking back. Because this story didn't end with vengeance. It ended with rebirth and karma. Karma didn't just catch up. She came in high heels and a suit, and she had my name.